Hello everybody, it is me, Game Penguin 21, and today, well, it's the end of the month and we have a lot of news to cover. These are, again, if this is your first time on this channel, I basically grab a bunch of different stories over the course of the month, stories that I couldn't actually talk about throughout the month, and this is just kind of an interesting way to reset because I take a lot of screenshots, and, well, I want to talk about more gaming news rather than just talking all about fanboys this entire time. So, yeah. This one has been a different format and on the channel for a while now, and I believe that I've been doing this for about a year, so congratulations to me for keeping up at least a monthly schedule. With all that being said, what are we talking about today? Well, this unfortunately had to be split into two parts because there was a lot of stuff that happened this month and a lot of things that I wanted to cover that I just honestly couldn't for whatever reason, which kind of sucks, but overall, the first part here, we're going to be talking, of course, about some of the Xbox news, recent stuff involving things such as the layoffs, as well as a couple of other interesting little tidbits about it. Very little in terms of Salt. We're then going to be moving on to Subnautica 2, as well as a couple of other things having to do with Subnautica. And more specifically, we're going to be then talking about some statements from Neil, as well as finishing off with a bit of an update on Stop Killing Games, as well as a couple other things and little smaller, funnier stories to kind of break up the whole bigger stories aspect. In part 2, we're going to be looking at some of the same stuff, including certain people getting kicked, certain people getting destroyed by X, Y, and Z for whatever reason, but overall, let's just get started. Of course, starting off with the good old shill. If you like what it is that I do, want to support in any other way, shape, or form other than like and subscribe, there's always enough links down to everything in the description below. And of course, looking at 1.5k by the end of the year, but again, I'm not expecting much here, unfortunately, so oops. In any case, let's get started. Of course, starting off with Tom Warren. Now, this isn't the person who broke the story initially, it's just the first person that I remember screenshotting this from, but from Bloomberg, they were reporting that there was a bunch of Microsoft layoffs. This is an old news as well. Again, some of this news is from the ending bit of last month that I just couldn't cover for whatever reason. But they cut off a bunch of people, and they canceled a lot of games, as we will be continuing on to talk about this. But I do find it interesting how they are canceling and laying off a ton of people, yet at the same time will decide to launch a MetaQuest 3S Xbox edition, which, again, this is coming from Zubby so unknown if this is a real thing. It might be a real thing. It just seems like it's a leak of some kind. Though at the same time, you know, it's very interesting that this is ending up happening here. One of, if not the biggest things as to why I'm talking about this is because RIP Perfect Dark, according to Simple Potato here, saying that Xbox officially cancels Perfect Dark, shutting down the Initiative Studio. Gameplay trailer from last year looked awesome and almost Dishonored-esque level design and variety. Xbox is such a mess, with, of course, this being one of the biggest games that I was actually looking forward to from Xbox. And it sucks that Perfect Dark was one of the games that got cut. There was several other games that got cut. I can't list them all off the top of my head, but there was a ton of games that got cut from Xbox's side here, which again, I find really funny because in another interesting story, kind of going along with the Xbox stuff, where Phil Spencer says that he will allegedly retire as CEO after the next-gen console launch, kind of proving that there might be a next-gen console launch, though there probably is. We could have assumed that from what we were talking about here. But again, at the same time, like, okay. Unsure if Phil it was a good CEO or a bad CEO. Same thing with the other one, but if that is true, then congratulations, I guess, on retirement. PlayStation fanboys are probably just like gonna use that whenever that happens. Big Fry with the talk about how it sucks that they ended up canceling the ZeniMax Studios, the makers of the Elder Scrolls, canceling part of the Xbox layoffs. So this is the new MMO project that was not announced from ZeniMax Online Studios, the same people that did that, which again, another dumb canceling game. I would have liked to see at least where that was at, but whatever. But at the same time, in more interesting and dumb-assery news here, we have, well, Xbox graphics team being hiring for experience with device drivers and GPU performance related to the validation of engineering systems, as well as a couple other things there. These are a couple of LinkedIn listings, and there's nothing wrong with LinkedIn's listings. I just find it really funny how, again, they had a ton of layoffs at Xbox, and Xbox itself had a ton of people getting laid off for developer reasonings and things. But now they are actually hiring graphics engineers, and they decided to use AI. Yeah. If you'll notice, this is like the standard AI type stuff here, where you can kind of tell a lot of the AI stuff here, mainly in the fact that the shading is a little bit off, the face is a bit weird, the eyes don't seem to line up with what it is, but more importantly, the biggest one here is that the monitor itself is not backwards, because it is facing her correctly. It's more of just that the coding is actually on the back of the monitor for whatever reason. Cool. Multi-million-dollar corporation, by the way. Multi-bajillion-dollar corporation, probably. I don't know. But, dude, come on. PlayStation Lifestyle then talking about how PlayStation Plus being a better business model than Game Pass, with devs agree. This is an article that just seems to be going around, and I don't really trust the PlayStation thing here. With Doomflow Gaming kind of doing what I would probably say in this situation, where you know what is going to happen if Game Pass fails. Fake gamers and media are going to cry about a good deal, talking about the service talking down on the service for years, and enjoy it while you can. The hate is crazy. That being said, who is really ruining gaming? It's hard to say at this point. I would say that PlayStation is ruining gaming more than Xbox. Xbox isn't necessarily ruining gaming, at least not in my own personal opinion, but that's just me. Overall, this is just a really dumb article, and I don't know why. Like, it's like devs agreed that it's better for stuff, which we've heard devs talk about it from both ways, so Next up here with PC is King. So with PS sending first-party games to Xbox, now what other would Xbox players see next? I think this is right, hashtag whole slate, where they're talking about, I think this is, I don't think this is an actual correct thing. Maybe this is just a leak, I don't know, but this is a screenshot. And I find it, again, interesting how this was made during the Helldivers 2 type stuff. I covered this more specifically, but talking about this, I don't think that this is real. This might just be a doctored screenshot. I don't know. I don't really find it. I just find it really funny how, again, they're already talking about the whole slate, even though only one came in there. I'm not sure if PlayStation would do that, but considering the fact of PlayStation was, you know, selling stuff pretty well, I would say I wouldn't hold my breath on more games not coming, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, more to the specifically bigger system here, talking about Subnautica 2 cutting entire developer leadership for the devs themselves. These are some of the people who were actually the founders of the actual games, and they were trying to get this as fast as possible, and they want good games. And this is not only just was this bad and how bad this specific story was, now they got most of the people here, but also the actual people, the publisher, specifically Krafton, fired the original founders from Unknown Worlds, the developers of Subnautica 2 and Subnautica 1, and I think all the Subnautica games, and they delayed the game to 2026, preventing the developers from receiving a $250 million in bonuses. This would be, I think, distributed to across all of the developers, which, by the way, they didn't want to do this because I guess they didn't want to spend more money on Subnautica 2 for whatever reason, despite the fact that, again, like, this was in their contract and that they fired everyone and are restarting the development, and this might put Subnautica 2 into development hell for whatever reason. Again, you can kind of read over this whole do not buy Subnautica 2. Basically, the founders, the co-founders, and several other people were fired abruptly without no reason, and there is now not going to be $250 million paid out to the developers in bonuses for not hitting those things because it got delayed. Wow, what the hell? Jason Schwimmer talking about the breaking thing. Again, this is kind of a re-upping of the same story. Not much else to at least the top tweet, but towards the bottom, if I can zoom in a little bit here, Some employees at Unknown were told that they were eligible for bonus ranging from hundreds to thousands of dollars, figures of stuff, and this is just a reiteration of that. And it is just unbelievable how they just decided, you know what, they look like they're gonna hit all these milestones. Let's just not have them hit the milestones. And this is one of the biggest reasons why Stop Killing Games, well, maybe not one of the biggest reasons, this is one of the reasons why I think that, at least in terms of game development, there might want to be looking into a union, but I'm not sure if that's even possible. It's just really dumb. That's like the publishers are like, oh, you're gonna hit your quota? Now you're not. And then just decides to not do that. Bro, what the fuck? More interesting news on the pain train today, talking about developers being stupid. PC Gamer having reportedly on EA where they are saying, hey, we're going to hit 100 million players, with even DICE thinking that that's not even feasible. I don't think that's any known, any actual game other than maybe MMOs have hit 100 million players. If you're talking about 100 million players over the course of a lifetime, I'm fairly certain that that is feasible, but 100 million players all at once, not particularly, because 100 million encompasses entire countries in terms of population, which I don't even know if that's specifically possible. The biggest amount of people that I remember seeing, at least online concurrently, for 100 million for that is about 2 million, and that's even being generous there. About 100 million sales, unsure. I would say 50 million is probably a little bit more. It's still a little bit of a stretch in terms of buying the game across all platforms, mind you, not just one platform specifically. But 100 million players, I don't really think that that's possible. Just find it really weird how EA is that overconfident about Battlefield 6, despite the fact of the other stuff. Next up here, we're talking about a little bit of a censorship from Ready or Not, where they are actually getting review bombed, or they were getting review bombed at some point because of the fact that there was a censored thing that was censoring some of, I believe, the controversial content and some of the other content in the game that kind of made it weird. This was to abide by, I think, the TOS on consoles to get crossplay and stuff. Overall, I wouldn't say that it's the greatest thing in the world to have to censor a game, but I can say that I do at least understand somewhat as to why Ready or Not would want to do this. Now, yes, it does suck, and censorship, verbatim, bar none, hands down, is bad. There is no real questions to that in my mind, that censoring a game like this is stupid, it's dumb, and it really shouldn't have to happen. But on the other hand, the developers didn't want to work on multiple versions of the game, and the developers also didn't want to make the experience different, I guess, on that. And they're not, and again, the game themselves did have to follow TOS rules, and we haven't actually seen like what the censorship was, or at least this didn't show the actual censorship was. If it's pretty extensive, then yeah, that's pretty bad. But overall, and again, very, very clearly here, I'm not in support of this, and I don't think that it's good to censor games for the purposes of just censoring them, which I find very stupid. I don't know. Next up here, we have from Neil Druckmann himself. This is a whole lot of nothing here, but this is kind of more to just talk about this because I find it interesting, where he basically talks about how he is stepping away from Season 3 of The Last of Us HBO, which I find very strange that they're able to get 3 seasons out of 2 games of stuff. Maybe they did like a Last of Us Part 2 1 or Last of Us 2, whatever. But he ends up stepping away because and he says it's a difficult decision. If you're overworking yourself, stepping away and stepping down from certain creative decisions of that might be important. Talking, of course, about how he's going to go back to making going back to the studio and blah, 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 talking about Intergalactic, which, again, Neil is a little bit pretentious, but I mean, I guess this is a good thing-ish, unsure, but congratulations. But kind of as an interesting and weird contrast to that, we then have Pirate Nation here saying, why do Western game devs no longer have passion for the medium? With Neil talking about how The Last of Us director says he doesn't think he has many big games left in him, and Kojima leaving behind a USB stick with game ideas after he dies, which both of these kind of shows like the 1-2 of like, or the verbatim of how this stuff sort of works. It's quite interesting to me how each of these just kind of works, or just kind of looks very strange here. Again, I don't think that it's just the lack of passion that Neil has. I think it's also the fact that he's gotten a lot of shit and garbage for stuff, which both sometimes deserve, sometimes not deserved, but overall, you know, very interesting about these two different headlines here. Josh, the editor, coming in here with an interesting spout of actually good news, and how Andy Pants got suspended from X. I'm sure if he has been unbanned or has been unsuspended or whatever, but he got kicked off of X. And if you want to know why he got kicked off of X, he ended up making a very, very terrible game that was AI generated and had a lot of very hateful things to say about it. If you want to know more, I do have a dedicated video on that. I'm not sure when specifically it was, but he got kicked off. Finally, to cap off this video, we now have a Dexerto article. Now, don't go away. This is actually good news and actually fucking based on Dexerto for reporting this. And that is Neil, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, the Vice President of the European Parliament, has voiced his full support for Stop Killing Games and signed the petition himself and urged other Europeans to do the same. Wonderful. Look at that shit. Hell yeah. As a quick update to Stop Killing Games, the movement, at the time of me recording this, I'm not sure if they've actually hit their 1.4 million overdrive goal. They did hit their 1 million one and have been steadily climbing over the course of the month, even after having to denounce and take out some of like the repeat names or some of the names that are just like were obviously made in bad faith. But this right here is a very huge step in terms of the Stop Killing Games movement, and overall is downright fantastical as to how fucking amazing that is. That is a huge, huge endorsement from the Vice President of the Parliament himself talking about this shit. That is incredible. Based person, I would like to take your hand, Mr. Stratovad. I really don't know how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. But very well done, sir. Very good news. On kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, Ubisoft got into a bunch of trouble for their EULA. Now, to go into the specifics before we get into their response, the specifics is that in one of the actual chapters, or one of the actual parts of the EULA, basically stated that you needed to destroy all of your things, including, like, what it was looking at was seemingly both physical copies as well as deleting all of your digital copies if they lose the license for whatever reason. Now, this was actually stupidly done and stupidly tweeted out by Ubisoft Report. Let's read out this together. We've seen recent reports about Ubisoft End User License Agreement, or the EULA, focusing on a closure related to what happens when a license ends. Thank you for raising the issue. As noted in some articles, the clause is not new. It's been part of our EULA for more than 10 years. It was originally designed as a formal legal provision to clarify that once a license ends, the user no longer has the rights to access or use the product. We understand that the language in the clause may sound unusually strong or out of step with how players experience or value their games, and are reviewing the clause as part of our ongoing efforts to ensure our policies reflects players' expectations and other evolving nature of our industry. Oh boy. The one line that I really wanted to really touch upon that is the best part as to why this is the most stupidest response in the world is, it was originally designed as a formal legal proposition to clarify that once a license ends, the user no longer has rights to access or use the product. The product that was bought with the user's money. So you can see why a lot of people had a fucking problem with that. Not only that, this is Ubisoft that we're talking about here, and not only does Ubisoft actually have a, I think, lobbying group that is currently going up against it. They don't have a lobbying group specifically, but they have people who were either representations of Ubisoft or representations of the actual developers in progress that were essentially saying, this is stupid, please don't make this go through in terms of Stop Killing Games. Verbatim. And overall, that's fucking dumb. So, very Ubisoft response, very just stupid response in general. And again, to touch on that lobbying group is fucking stupid. So yeah, very dumb. Moving on to Mischief here, talking about Pirate Software, who was a big proprietor of, well, not the actual petition, and he is actively trying to destroy it, went completely mask off, and has completely become a lolcow of the internet after having very much respect for some of the people here. Someone basically decided to end up cracking their game's champion of breakfast, so congratulations, your uncrackable game is pretty crackable. Same thing with the other game as well. In more smaller news, again coming back to Xbox, according to the leaks, the Rogue Ally is going to be around $700, with the Ally X being $1,500. Now, my opinion on this, if these are actually to be confirmed or have been confirmed, that's a little too expensive in my personal opinion. $700 for, say, the PlayStation itself, yeah, that's way too expensive as well. But $700 for a handheld, maybe not. I would say that's still on the edge of being too expensive. The $1,000 one is way too expensive. Jesus Christ, that is terrible. I would say if the Rogue Ally, like Xbox Ally, was to be priced appropriately, I would say around $500 to $550 would be a pretty decent price. Dropping it down by that much is still a little bit on the more expensive side, but at the same time, it's still a handheld PC, which still has to compete in the market. So yeah, as well as the Ally X, if it was as powerful, the Ally X would be priced at the $700 mark just to be on my side if I was actually doing the pricing for this. But I'm not, and this is a stupid amount of pricing. If it's $700 is too much for a PlayStation 5, $700 is definitely too much for a Rogue Ally X. So, And finally, ending it off and capping this whole thing off with a bunch of silly news where Fortnite streamer Clicks, I think I'm going to say Clicks here, bans a 14-year-old on his Twitch chat for donating over $36,000 to him in a month. Now, I know that I love and I appreciate a lot of the people who, when they donate to their favorite streamers or donate to me personally, links down to everything below if you want to support me financially and get some access to some of my stuff. Don't do this, especially if you're 14 and are, probably using mom's credit card to donate to your favorite streamer, especially $36,000 in 1 month. That is some people's yearly salary. Jesus Christ. And it sucks that he got banned, but at the same time, brother, that's there's support, and then there's just terminally online support. Please. With all that being said, this is the ending of part 1. Again, in part 2, we're going to go over some more censorship, more other stuffs into that, including some interesting payment processors and update to payment processors stories, which overall suck massive donkey balls. With all that being said, my name is GamePenguin21. If you like what I do and want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, other than like and subscribe, which is always enough. Links down to everything in the description below. My new albums are releasing. My new EP is releasing probably towards the end of July, maybe on this Saturday at the beginning of August, with the full album probably being pushed back towards the middle of September. I keep pushing it back because I keep thinking I don't want to release my music too close to each other, just so I have people that want to get it. Streams every Sunday. If I do it, check out the posts and things if things happen there. Sometimes I need to cancel because of health reasons, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, if you want to check out Twitch, which is where I also stream, links down to that in the description below. My name is GamePenguin21, and a peace off.
Hey man, can I get a favor? Yeah, sure, I know, see you later.